And what we're finding is it's doing that very rapidly, and this is helping a lot in an anti-jamming scenario. But that same technology facilitates performance in commercial frequency bands or unlicensed frequency bands in urban environments as well. That's just passive interference caused by a bunch of different Wi-Fi devices, things like that. Jamming is really just intentional interference being caused by an aggressor.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 426. How is multi-band mesh networking technology revolutionizing UAV operations? For that question, we head to Marina del Rey to speak with Amol Parikh, co-CEO of Doodle Labs. Doodle Labs designs and produces industrial-grade wireless technology solutions. The company focuses on mesh networking for robotic systems, providing high-throughput, long-range solutions for a variety of government, defense, private wireless, and other applications. Doodle Labs has offices in the United States and Singapore, and has been named to the Fast Company's list of world's most innovative companies for 2024. Doodle Labs is a leader in providing industrial-grade wireless networking solutions. Their radios are widely used in military situations because of their anti-jamming capability, providing drone operators with much improved signal strength and continuity. Doodle Labs' breakthrough development of multi-band technology can also benefit several commercial applications as well. In this episode of the Drone Radio Show, Amol talks about Doodle Labs, its revolutionary mesh communication radios, and how multi-band technology can benefit military and commercial applications. But before we hear from Amol, I want to stress that your support is the heartbeat of my podcast. Every episode is crafted with you in mind, and your generous donations ensure I can keep delivering the content you love. Whether it's the price of a coffee or a more substantial contribution, every bit helps to defray the cost of production. Donate today and be a vital part of the podcast's continued journey to greatness. And for a limited time, donate $100 or more and receive an official Drone Radio Show coffee mug. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And if you can, please subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform and leave a nice review and rating on iTunes. It really helps improve the podcast ranking among the many thousand of active podcasts today. And by the way, if you have a great story about the use of drones that you'd like to share in a podcast, contact me at randy@droneradioshow.com. So let's learn how multi-band communication networks are adding value to UAV operations with Amol Parikh of Doodle Labs. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Amol to introduce himself.
My name is Amol Parikh. I'm the co-CEO at Doodle Labs.
Amol, tell us about Doodle Labs. What does the company do?
So Doodle Labs, we are focused on long-range, high-performance mesh networking solutions. We've really focused on robotic systems for quite some time, and in particular, we really focused in on the drone category. And what we really focus on is everything that goes along with that long-range data link that is core to the functionality of that robotic system in the field. We have a lot of technology that we've developed over the years to make that very reliable over those long ranges in non-optimal environments, to be able to expand out and scale up in things like mesh and drone swarms, as well as, recently we released something that helps a lot with interference mitigation, specifically in the forms of jamming or even passive interference that you get on our unlicensed bands in urban environments.
There are a number of companies that specialize in communications for drones and other robotic platforms. What makes Doodle Labs stand out among the other companies?
What I would say, it really comes down to the core of who we are. And at Doodle Labs, we've actually been working on long range connectivity, long range Wi-Fi for many, many years. Our company goes back to 2008. And we worked through different forms of, long range access points for various use cases. And we got really into robotics many years ago. And again, with that commercial focus. And so I think what that's allowed us to do is it's influenced both our tech stack as well as how we approach pricing, as well as, the frequency bands and things that are available to our customers. So what that means is we build off of a Qualcomm chipset. We benefit from the standards being continuously developed and evolved, and we get to build on top of that and continue that R&D on an ever-evolving platform. So we don't have something that is stuck in time. It's continuously evolving and updating. That also facilitates us having a lower overall price point because we're using these commercially available things instead of building everything from scratch. And then, as I mentioned, the offerings for our customers, we offer our radios in commercially unlicensed frequency bands like 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, 900 megahertz, even 5.8 gigahertz. What that does is allows us to actually have an offering for all of the commercially focused robotics platforms, as well as we have the federal frequency bands for all of our defense-focused platforms as well. I think that kind of work, as we've been able to then support various platforms in both of these categories, has been recognized. This year we were named on Fast Company's Most Innovative Companies list in the robotics category. And I think some other things like that has been recent recognition of just how we differentiate and how we're looking to support that true dual use case and markets on both the commercial and the defense side.
Within the commercial sector, are there any particular markets that Doodle Labs focuses on?
And again, we have really focused in on robotics at large and specifically drones for quite some time. And so the way that we access or go to market and both sides is really through these types of platforms. And so on the commercial side, one of our key customers is FreeFly, and they're an amazing company, and they've made an incredible platform that is really robust and a really great solution for the commercial and industrial side of drone uses. It's heavily involved in wildfire management as well as the actual addressing of wildfire response. We also work with Boston Dynamics and their Spot Dog we have for many, many years, as well as we actually support several robotics companies focused on warehouse AMRs or even the more humanoid type of it. So we really are focused, or we're able to support all kinds of different use cases there. Some of the really interesting ones that were really cool to see, but the Grand Tour, the racing show, was the last 2 seasons were filmed using our technology to help support manipulating and actually taking the video stream off of the cameras in the host car to the follow-on car. So those are really various use cases, as well as the public safety use cases that we're seeing develop more and more as they start to adopt situational awareness tools like TAC, Tactile Awareness Kit, and needing something like our Mesh Rider wearable to help fill in any gaps that you have in connectivity when you go into these off-grid, beyond available networks type of environments, and you still need to maintain connectivity between the team.
So your primary customer then is the manufacturer. You're not focusing on end users at all.
That's right. Really, most of our lineup is really OEM products designed to be integrated, designed to be that really small size, weight, low swap, as used in drone spaces quite a bit. That's really where we started from. We have added that wearable radio, which is a fully finished IP68 rated enclosed radio. And that is the one that's ending up in the hands of end users a little bit more, or being brought into these other robotics networks to actually facilitate humans joining the network. But what we're really focused on, and really where we've cut our teeth for many years, is in that integrated solution that goes into the robotics platform.
I'm curious, how do you hook up with the manufacturers? Do they typically come to you with a problem that needs solving? Or do you go to them and show them how you can make their systems better? How does that interplay typically work?
Yeah, interesting question. It's definitely a mix. And we've been active in our marketing to be able to, have our name out there in front of folks who are looking for a particular solution. But it's really that where We have a very specialized solution that, again, is actually the reason why we focused in on the drone space for quite some time. That particular use case, I think, recognized a long time ago that standard, Wi-Fi chips or things like that aren't going to cut it when they have such a specialized use case. Has to go so far, has to transmit data reliably, otherwise you lose control. This drones are often programmed to return to base or things like that. So to maintain effectiveness of these platforms, the whole point that they're really being built, they recognized that they needed a specialized and highly reliable type of comm solution. So that's something that was really easy for us to kind of focus in on and really help even develop further our solution with those particular use cases in mind. Then in other segments, often on the ground side or in different environments, their challenges are very different. Ground-based networks don't have to go those same tens of kilometers, but they're usually somewhat range limited, or warehouse use cases face issues with just like all of the metal racks causing interference, things like that. And that's where there is an exploration of what kind of solutions can help solve my problems. And that's where we've really looked at what are those unique comms or networking challenges that are faced in those types of environments, and really developed a variety of things that we've added onto our platform that are sometimes optional or otherwise just natively available that help solve those unique use cases or unique problems. So then circling all the way back to how do they find us, it's usually they have a problem and they're looking for a solution. And when it makes sense and when we have that solution for them, that's usually where we get to connect.
What are some of the challenges in developing systems for the defense sector?
More than anything else, what we see on the defense side as we work in that space is that it is ever evolving. And it's especially there's things going on right now in Ukraine. It's being called the drone war. Like the rapid development of technology to support the various use cases in defense has never been greater. And we've always supported defense use cases through having those federal frequency bands available. And really just several years ago, we got directly involved as we were tapped by DIU. They sponsored the development of a radio for the Blue UAS program. And so that's where we developed our Helix radio in sponsorship by DIU. They had a requirement to have coverage over 6 frequency bands, not necessarily on a single radio, but that was something that we were able to develop at that time. And so Helix covers those 6 frequency bands in one radio. It was something that we were able to then offer. So you have multiple frequency bands that facilitate global deployments or various different use cases if you're allowed to operate in a certain band in one place and not in another. But what we then were able to add to it, and this is directly addressing defense requirements or how things are being experienced on the battlefield, we added our sense technology, which is our interference agility. And what that does is it experiences a degradation of the data link, it experiences interference on the band, and it now actively uses all of those bands that are in the one radio, and it can move to a better operating part of the same band to a different channel or to a different band altogether. And what we're finding is it's doing that very rapidly, and this is helping a lot in an anti-jamming scenario. And that's one of the greatest pain points for deploying drones on the battlefield. But that same technology facilitates performance in commercial frequency bands or unlicensed frequency bands in urban environments as well. That's just passive interference caused by a bunch of different Wi-Fi devices, things like that. Jamming is really just intentional interference being caused by an aggressor.
So it improves the reliability of the systems.
Exactly right. Like these systems, they're doing really important jobs. They're now being relied on so heavily, but then when they're jammed, they're just rendered completely useless. And so by being able to have something that allows you to move away from that jamming signal, to maintain connectivity with your drone, to be able to maintain the mission, it helps a lot. And we see that sense along with our multiband radios have been working very well. But again, it goes back to some of those sensitivities. It's really just the landscape is evolving so fast, and it's really like a cat and mouse game. As you develop one thing to counter one issue, then there's a new one. And so we're rapidly working on continuously evolving alongside those, especially working very closely with our customers, both in Ukraine as well as drone OEMs that are supplying into Ukraine. And also, thing that's also happened after the fact is it seems to be all governments are really looking at how do they bolster their drone inventory, their drone fleets, kind of taking some notes from what's happening right now.
Considering the dynamic nature of the drone industry, how do you keep from developing technology or solutions that become obsolete quickly?
It is to the testament of our tech team and our R&D team. Like they're an incredible group who's working really hard and really fast to do that. And it also goes to our customers. We really get to learn about what those challenges are on the field by our customers and the end users who are deploying into the field and being able to provide that feedback back. We, as a core to our company, have always developed our technology, taking in a lot of customer feedback. And so we have a very good way of being able to rapidly evolve and develop against the things that we're hearing, and especially being able to understand which ones are most critical, which ones can, take more time. We also have developed that Mesh Rider platform, as I mentioned, and it's diversified into various form factors to satisfy different types of systems based on, the different requirements that folks have. And then we've built on top of that with our software-based features. Sense is one of those. And then there's something else that we have called dynamic mesh that goes back to the warehouse use case, but they are just all in response to solving those particular pain points that we're seeing our customers or the end users are facing. And it naturally fits right into how we plan out our longer term R&D roadmap for us to be able to rapidly develop alongside those as well.
Let's talk about some use cases where Doodle Labs mesh communication networks were used. Earlier this year, some drones that were fitted with your radios were used by the National Park Service to survey and inspect the General Sherman tree in the Sequoia National Park. This is the first time that a drone inspected the world's largest known living tree. Can you tell us about that project?
Yeah, I think that was a really interesting one. It was one that I was really proud to be a part of. That actually was one that we did again with FreeFly. And what was exciting about it is, drones have been in the conversation for quite some time. The commercial drones and consumer drones have been available for quite some time. So I think actually there is sometimes an expectation that they're being used in various use cases a lot more than they actually are. And what I'm excited about watching and having been a part of the drone industry for quite some time now is that it's really reaching a level of maturation where those unique things that drones can facilitate, like removing people from dangerous environments, facilitating additional or more in-depth investigation, various payloads that can, like by LiDAR or by multispectral camera, et cetera, to investigate something for on-site in the field, information being made available to make on-the-ground decisions. All of that is actually still somewhat nascent, but it's starting to become more ubiquitous. And so this is an example of something like that, where what the background of it was, in quick summary, is that General Sherman is one of the largest, or it's the largest by volume, sequoia tree in the Sequoia National Park. And what they've experienced, as we've experienced, all of us here in California, is several years of drought, as well as several years of wildfire. Those mixed together, plus they're experiencing a new potential threat by the native sequoia bark beetle. So it's not some foreign bug, but the native sequoia bark beetle now seems to be burrowing into the trees. And so what they were looking to investigate is what is the health of General Sherman in particular, as well as a lot of the larger old growth trees in Sequoia National Park. And the way that they've been able to do that until this day is just direct observation. And these trees are 200, 300 feet tall. And it is really incredible what these climbers do. They do it in a non-destructive, non-harmful way, but that means that they're shooting an arrow up off of a crossbow to that really high canopy, setting a bunch of ropes, climbing up there. It's quite dangerous, quite tedious, and quite involved. They did do that again as well, because this was the first time that the Department of Interior and the Park Service was trying a drone, at least as an add-on, if not a replacement, for having to do that big climb. And what they were able to do really quickly was, with the FreeFly Astro that we were involved with them, they were able to fly multiple payloads. One was a LiDAR scanner, one was a multispectral camera, and the other was just a high definition camera. And they're able to get really in-depth reviews of the tree at that canopy all around 360 and get that, inspection of even just those penetration by the beetles on site, on the ground. That, along with what the climbers had done directly as well, they were able to make a determination that, in fact, General Sherman is doing well. It passed its health check. But now they also have a bit of a playbook, and they have a whole forest that they want to go investigate. And there's a lot of other trees. And, it took 2 days of setting up ropes and climbing up with the climbers, whereas with the drone, it was a matter of a couple hours to do the entire investigation. And so hopefully it's something that can facilitate a safer way of doing some of these things, a faster way to do some of these things. And that's really why it was kind of unique. It was the first time they'd really use it in that capacity, but with the intent that they were going to start deploying that a lot more.
How did the drones, and more specifically, the radios, add value to the project?
It's really just that on-site real-time access to that data is really what it facilitates, because they're going up, they're running these cameras, the drone's flying for tens of minutes to the hour overall kind of thing. So it's a lot of data to have to actually sort through after the fact. But if you're watching it in real time, you're able to then see, oh, there's something, an area of interest, let's go in further. Then you are able to look at that, make a determination, move on to the next thing. And that's what it facilitates. That's where our radios really come in. It's that real-time communications link that is facilitating whatever payload that was carrying at the time, that data being streamed back to the ground, to the team on the ground who's using that data to actually make those determinations and actually direct, where they're flying their drone. While it wasn't exactly like a long range link by any means, we were relatively near the base of the tree. It is a tall tree, but the challenges that we faced were more in terms of all of the foliage. And when you fly around the tree, you're fully obscured from where the pilot would be, things like that. And so that's really where some of the testing of the comms link comes in. And again, it was just really exciting to see what we were able to help facilitate.
And then in February of this year, Doodle Labs worked with members of the Corona Fire Department to test the ability of the network to maintain communications in remote or areas with spotty LTE coverage.
This is a really amazing team over at the Corona Fire Department. And it's in particular because they have someone on their team, this guy, AJ Johansson, who's really been an evangelist for the fire service at large to adopt technologies like the Tactical Awareness Kit, which is a situational awareness tool built onto a phone, so that they can facilitate team communications on the ground to be able to make real-time decisions together or know where they are on a map or where their team is on a map. Some of these things, again, sound somewhat basic from the way that we've been experiencing these things as a consumer with our phones and Google Maps and FaceTime and messaging. That's the features that are brought into this app, but those haven't been made available in a functional way that can actually facilitate these team comms and situational awareness planning and execution in the field. Now you're starting to get these types of apps that are able to do that, but then the challenges that they face is when these guys go into off-grid environments, into a lot of times, the wildfire scenarios are in those beyond available LTE coverage environments, as well as just in, you could find yourself in an urban environment post-disaster, or I think all of us might have experienced after a big game that you might be at the stadium or after a concert, you try to use your phone when everyone else is trying to use their phone. The networks are just congested and therefore less reliable. And these guys are doing absolutely critical work. So that's where we came in, and that's where we worked with them on they were stress testing and demonstrating when you are in those spotty, unreliable LTE coverage areas, which would otherwise render the use of those situational awareness tools completely moot and unavailable. Now you're able to fill those gaps with a mesh radio. And they use the same terminology as the military PACE plans. The primary would be LTE when it's available. The alternate would be something like these mesh radios that still facilitate the team to actually communicate, coordinate on the ground amongst themselves, even if they didn't have access to, the larger long-range network like LTE or satellite. And then what we're actually able to do with them is show that our radios work really well with those larger area networks like LTE and satellite. We actually connected our radio into a Starlink just directly over Ethernet. And then what we're able to do is we had the whole team in that disconnected environment. but they were able to still be cloud connected via that one radio of ours that was connected to Starlink. It was pushing it out to the whole team. They were able to pass, the video from a drone. They were able to communicate amongst themselves, send pictures, really facilitated a lot of what we did with them, which was a field exercise of a search and rescue call. And they were able to keep the connectivity, they were able to keep coordinated, and we were able to run that successfully, even when they didn't have LTE turned on at all on the phones that were in the field.
Would you say that as the industry has matured, it's opened up broader applications for your radios and communication technology?
I would say so, absolutely. Because what we're kind of seeing is for a long time, there has just been a, kind of exploration or just like a heads down building of a specific robotic system, maybe a specific drone platform. And then they're now actually at that point where they're selling into market and they have, folks like the Department of Interior on the defense side who are starting to actually adopt those technologies at large. But they're not looking to just have just a drone do one thing. They're really having that drone as a tool that works within a larger network that includes a ground team, includes potentially unmanned ground vehicles, or just a variety mix of things. And so what we're seeing, the end users are asking a lot more about larger mesh networks, about multimodal networks that are supporting all these various types of systems. And that definitely seems like the next step. And we're also seeing that, a lot of these customers that we support have moved into production scale at this point where they're focused on actually deploying at large volumes instead of that proof of concept stage that we've seen them at for quite some time. And so what that really shows is that it's definitely hit some inflection point and it's definitely, they're finding their use case. And I think just as they're starting to, all these robotic systems are starting to be put to work in various things, a lot of people are very creative and coming up with other use cases that are similar or quite different, but that's all happening a lot more. Whereas I think for maybe a few years ago, a lot of it was a lot more theoretical and the theoretical benefit was there, but I think we're starting to see the actualization of that.
You've mentioned the wearable technology a few times. Can you highlight what makes it special?
The wearable radio of ours, again, it was as we really looked at expanding upon that initial set that we had. So we had developed that Helix radio, really designed in a small form factor. We call it the mini form factor, designed to go into those types of robotics platforms. Again, drones, I mentioned before, but they have self-selected into very unique requirements. They needed their biggest issue is, battery life based on having to fight gravity. So all the components have to be incredibly small, incredibly lightweight. And that's what we had with the mini. But then as we start to see those get expanded out and, there's a diversity in what GCSs, ground control stations people are using, or even if they want to now start to look at mesh networks where it's more than just a point-to-point, they might have an ad hoc stakeholder want to come in and be able to downstream that video from the drone directly. They might want to have multiple drones flown from one controller, just various different use cases. They might want to be able to swap controllers from one to the next. That's where the wearable kind of came in addition to those other features that we have to support the mesh networking side, is there are often times where that ad hoc stakeholder wanting to come onto the scene, they just want to be able to view that video feed on their phone. They don't have, a GCS with an integrated radio. The wearable comes with a Wi-Fi hotspot, or you can connect to it over USB-C tether. It requires no integration whatsoever. It's in the IP68 enclosure, so it's weatherized, it's weatherproofed, it can handle being submerged underwater. So now it becomes something that facilitates people coming onto the network. It's the thing that the Corona Fire Department had used exclusively in that field exercise. It's also something that now replaces, if a GCS has a radio built in, another radio, or if it doesn't altogether, you can bring in the wearable and that can help you connect to that drone that already has our mini built into it. So it just provides a lot of flexibility. We're also seeing it be used in vehicle mounted use cases, or even sometimes in these ad hoc fixed mounted use cases as well, where it can just be rapidly thrown up on a tripod. Again, with all the radios being mesh, what that facilitates is you can set up a serial network, or you can set up a relay point using these types of various use cases. So we call it a wearable because initially the idea was that it was going to just be used almost as like a handheld to facilitate the use of like an end user device, like a phone or tablet. But we're starting to see that again, people are creative and they start to use the tools that are available in many different ways. And a lot of those like fixed or vehicle mounted configurations are stuff that we're seeing as well.
Is there a story behind the origin of the company?
Our founder, Nimesh, he was involved in Wi-Fi technology from the very beginning. And so he had actually started a precursor to Doodle Labs called Smart Bridges that was really focused on long range access points. And one of his core insights was just that as that technology was developing and it was really being focused on indoor applications, he recognized that it can be used for much further distances and for these outdoor use cases. And so that was where we really started. And then around 2008, there was actually a pivot towards starting to actually build the integrated solutions. We started with our transceiver. These are, we actually have our transceivers. It's our longest running product. It's in every Airbus A320. It's in Boston Dynamics Spot Dog. It's a very long range Wi-Fi transceiver. And what we start to see, especially in the last like maybe 6 years or so, as we got more and more involved with robotics customers, is that they were having to build a very similar tech stack around our transceivers, around our long range Wi-Fi. And we realized that we can help with that quite a bit. We can help with the integration effort. We can help with the performance once it is integrated with our, specialization in RF technology. And so that's really where the Mesh Rider radio platform came from. And so we've always just been focused on that long range, highly reliable data links for various use cases. Again, we have a commercial background and we've been more involved in defense over the last several years. We're fully focused in robotics right now and providing solutions for any types of robotics platforms, whatever their use case, whatever their environment, and making it very easy to, mix and match our different radio offerings to really build out that multimodal, multi-domain type of network that we were talking about earlier.
What advice would you offer to other entrepreneurs?
Definitely choose something that you find really interesting that can help sustain you during the harder days or the slower days. I mean, again, we focus on robotics for quite some time. And what I experienced when I first started was it seemed like the drone space had reached a certain stagnation point. This goes back like 5 years ago. And it was hard to kind of see what was going to happen, but I was very excited about the potential of the robotics future, that potential of using robotics to put them into jobs that means that you can take someone out of a really dangerous situation where you can actually scale up or be more efficient and effective. And then what I'm really happy about, and this is just the current moment that we find ourselves in, but that future has really been developing around us. And I think we've been a part of it as well. And that's been really invigorating, seeing what is possible, seeing that future kind of unfolding around us. And that because we've been working on something that at least I personally am very excited about and really interested in, that's really sustained me, from the early point to now. And it just seems like now is the moment for this particular technology. And so I think that that's something that anyone who works on something that they really care about can definitely carry you a long way.
And for my final question, Amol, what message would you like to leave regarding the future of the drone industry?
I think it's related to the last thing that I was just saying. I think it's very exciting to see what people are thinking about using robotics technology for now and how that builds upon itself to expand into the things that we're going to see tomorrow. I mentioned earlier where I'm feeling like we're starting to see the actualization of a lot of those theoretical benefits of putting robotics to work, robotics into various environments. And I personally think that there's something very exciting to that. I think there's a lot of that potential benefit to be had. And it's exciting to see that kind of unfold around us and at this current moment. But at the same time, every one of us, ourselves included, have to continuously evolve because as this becomes more available, more in the market, those challenges that go along with actually making them successful, reliable, safe, are continuing to evolve as well. So there's no kind of just, okay, we made it. But it's a continuous effort, but it's just really exciting to see the current moment that we find ourselves in.
That's it for episode 426 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Amol Parikh of Doodle Labs. I want to thank Amol for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Doodle Labs or want to connect with Amol, check out the webpage at doodlelabs.com. If you like the drone radio show, then please subscribe and share. Write a glowing review on iTunes. And if you're able, donate to keep the podcast going. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Gores.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.